No, I think Paul George to the Sixers, there's three different layers to it. Layer one, stop me if you heard this before, but it appears that the Sixers have a big three, right? Um, part two, yeah, that'll be it for this run of the Clippers. And part three, well, didn't the Warriors want him? And that's interesting that there was a potential for a sign and trade there with the Warriors. Not that the Clippers definitely would have done it, but man, is this an interesting time. So let's just take the Sixers' perspective of it. For the Sixers, they were trying to find kind of the perfect mix, and they've tried to find so many times in the past. And you mix in the fact that Maxey signs a massive contract extension, Embiid coming off an outstanding year, although didn't do much in their elimination game. And Paul George, who likely grew frustrated with the Clippers, but more than anything, couldn't get that fourth year out of the Clippers. I do think it kind of all works together, right? Like there's no redundancies. And not that the Suns had total redundancies, but they didn't have a point guard, they didn't have a big, it didn't work. I'd say the Clippers, until they went and got James Harden, they didn't have a point guard. And then for them, there was some mismatched pieces there, but the biggest thing for the Clippers were they just couldn't stay healthy. Couldn't stay healthy at all. But for the Sixers, for the league, it's gigantic. You have legitimate competitive teams in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. That's big time. Like, if Charlotte's not good, nobody cares. If even when Brooklyn was really good, like people forget, it was just a couple years ago that Kevin Durant had his toe on the line, makes a three-pointer at the buzzer, sends it to overtime. If the toe not on the line, the Bucks don't go to Bucks don't go to the finals. Bucks don't go to the finals. They win a championship. History changed, and that was a team where, remember, Kyrie Irving had just gotten hurt. James Harden wasn't quite healthy, and the margin for error is just so slight. But the really important thing to think about is that the Nets, and nothing I'm telling to anyone who's ever been in New York, lived, or worked in New York, as I did work in New York, the Nets are like seventh in terms of importance of professional sports teams. They just are. The Knicks, well, the Knicks are a steady number two, but really number one. No one's been able to crack the code with winning a championship. Right? So if the Knicks are good and the Sixers are good and the Celtics are good, and they just won a championship, the NBA is like, we're all good. We're all good. And I like the Paul George move. Paul George as the best player, I don't think can compete to win a championship. Paul George as the second or third best player can win a championship. Now, it's likely going to come down to the ancillary pieces around him. They do have Kelly Oubre back. They're going to need to build a bench and whatever. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then you factor in what New York did last week and what the Celtics already have and retaining what the Celtics already have, and you have three elite teams. The NBA, if Atlanta's good or not good with Trae Young, doesn't matter. We still don't know what happens with Jimmy Butler. And Miami's a team that no one wants to play. Everyone respects. But fans don't seem to want to watch. Right? I mean, Detroit's been a flaming dumpster fire of poo for years now. They just paid $65 million for a one-year coach, right, to leave. And then they just went and hired a coach that got fired in Cleveland after having a really good season. Cleveland's still viable. We'll see what they do with Donovan Mitchell with the roster. Atlanta, by trading away DeJounte Murray, seems to go back all in with Trae Young. But the reality is those three teams in the East, they give you viability in terms of the number of viewers. it doesn't mean, and we had Rick Bucher on in the first hour, and Rick Bucher said, like, look, with the new TV deals, it doesn't really matter what their ratings are. No, but there is a bit of an ego involved, and you want to keep all of your television or streaming partners happy. So the fact is that it's embarrassing to look at some of these numbers and be like, that's all the NBA playoffs drew? If you have New York, if you have Philadelphia, you have Boston, you have people watching TV or streaming your games. That's the reality. Those are massive markets, massive basketball markets, and competitive fan bases against one another. Here's Rick Bucher earlier on Paul George deciding to bolt for Philly.
Not surprised. I was told and believe it to be true that when they signed Kawhi Leonard to his 3-year extension, that they made a promise to him that they wouldn't be signing Paul George or anybody else to extensions longer than his. And Paul was set on getting 4 years. There was some talk about potentially a sign and trade to the Warriors. Clippers, I don't know that the Clippers wanted to send him to a rival and see him quite that often and create a threat. The Clippers couldn't make a deal where they were going to send him out and get something back. So, in looking at the Clippers, I also have to believe that they're like they stuck to their guns because Paul George is 33 years old. I believe that they're setting themselves up for a year from now, where if you look at the number of unrestricted free agents, Ivica Zubac is a free agent, P.J. Tucker, Terrence Mann, Russell Westbrook, Amir Coffey. They only have $110 million roughly committed to the 25-26 season. And so I think it's going to give them an opportunity to get into their new building and then hit the reset button.
Hit the reset button, and we'll see what they're able to what Lawrence Frank and them are able to build. Doug Gottlieb in for Colin. This is the Herd. I can't help. I don't want to see any sympathy, right? There actually is now. I've been doing national radio for 22 years. And I've always said this, there's no such thing as a lifelong Clipper fan because having grown up in Southern California, like there was like 2 years they were good under Larry Brown. They played in the old sports arena. Outside of that, no one was really a Clipper fan. I couldn't afford to be a Laker fan, so I went to a Clipper game. That was it. But now you have a generation of people who grew up Lob City and then into this, and now you have the new arena. There's a chance, but there was a window there. The Lakers have had a miserable, basically decade, right? And they're moving into an arena which is in Inglewood. Inglewood is the Lakers city. The Lakers don't play there anymore, but during the heyday of Showtime, they did at the Forum. The Forum's still standing, so here's what it looks like. I think it's north to south. There's the Forum, which is redone, but it's only for concerts. Then SoFi, then the Intuit Dome. So they're moving into Lakers territory. Right? It's in much the way different but similar in, remember, the Chargers being right there. I mean, one of the reasons it was hard for the Chargers to get going when they were in Carson is that's right in Raiders fan territory. Right? The Clippers have always been there, but it's a Laker town. And now you're moving to Inglewood, which is the Lakers. Inglewood was known as City of Champions because of the Lakers. And there was no greater window. They had all the resources in the world. They had all the momentum. They had the owner with untold billions of dollars and a desire to spend it to win, and they could never get over that hump. And now they hit reset and start again. I mean, as much as the story is about the Sixers, and look, I know the Clippers are relatively irrelevant, and I think we'll get to with Jovan Buha is going to join us in like 10 minutes. We'll ask him about the Lakers and what they do now. But I really think the bigger story, or as big a story, is not just the league, which is going to see, I think, a spike because of the volume of sports television fans and viewers that want to watch the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Sixers play at a high level. But the woulda, coulda, shoulda of the Clippers, it could have been their town. It could have been there. LeBron's not really an all-time Laker. Like LeBron's a great player who played at the end of his career for the Lakers. People haven't embraced him the way they had so many other. They had a shot and they missed.